Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here.
Hello, beautiful people. How are you? Speaking of beautiful people, this is one of the most divine, angelic souls I have ever encountered. And I mean that.
Because I gave you a perfumed cream.
She gave me a really nice perfume cream before I came out here. I smell really good right now. But I mean it. We've been friends from afar. We've had a few connections, one phone call, mutual admiration. But you're a tremendous, authentic, joyful, almost childlike in ways. You'll see like this joy, this childlike.
Who knows
joy
me in the room? They're like, yep.
Mm-hmm. So let's see. You know, just introducing my new friend. It's so nice to be with you.
Same. Thank you. And what you don't know is that on many weekends in my PJs with the 3 kids running around, I was reading some of your work and just going, oh, wow, she just really gets it. She just gets into the heart and the mind. And never did I think that this would happen. And it's an honor. So thank you.
Right back at you. Right back at you. And I'm also so proud to be in the midst of people who publish their books in any form. And so congratulations. She's been out on the road. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, everybody has their hands on a copy of the book tonight. And I always like to start with the why behind the book, the core behind the book. What's this why?
I think people sometimes forget that when you write a book, there's a whole life experience that's kind of like a propulsion, like a force that brought you there. So for me, it wasn't a moment, oh, I have to write a book. It was the culmination of 20 years of mental health advocacy, of doing lots of volunteer work, of meeting with incredible experts, with being kind of like a continuous student of life. And I'm curious. I'm an only child, and from 0 to 4, I was born in nature, playing independently outside and talking to the squirrels and the wind and the trees. And for me, the other was a source of solace, nourishment. It wasn't like Sartre says, the other is hell. Not at all. I wanted that emotional presence and connection. And I realized in my 20s, when I suffered from eating disorders in my late teens, and into my 20s, when I started sharing my story, I was a newcomer on the TV and radio scene in Quebec. And I thought, should I talk about this? Because one of my girlfriends from my teenage years in high school, she was starting a foundation for eating disorders, and she told me, do you want to get involved? And I said, yes. I just knew inside that it was the right thing to do. So that kind of changed my inner compass and the direction my life was taking. And so in time, when I shared my story, I realized, okay, I didn't lose any contracts, and I could continue to be me in a way. And it brought me, 20 years later to put kind of like all of my life experience until then, motherhood and the co-political path and the craziness and the chaos of it all, but also the beauty and the unique aspect of it. And I told myself, I can't keep all of this for me. It has to serve. So this is what I want to do with the book. Our world, I'm not informing you of anything here, but our world is facing so many crises. And if you look at leaders everywhere right now, in our communities, in our schools, in your companies, in our own households, do we know ourselves? If these spots weren't on and I didn't have a famous, whatever, notorious last name because of who I married, and I wasn't with you, who's a star, who's left? How do I speak to myself in my bedroom at night when nobody's watching? How do you? How do most people speak to themselves? That's the person I kind of want to get closer to in myself and in others, because emotional leadership is really about, and you teach this, taking that breath when you're out of breath, right? Going deeper within yourself, stopping a moment before your anger rises and you want to become aggressive. I'm using examples of daily life that happens in many households. Yeah. Talking yourself down from a place of fear and anxiety and telling yourself, it's going to be okay, my love. It's going to be okay. If we taught this to children in schools, they can pinpoint a country on a map, they can multiply or whatever, subtract, which is great and necessary. But if we taught them about their own anatomy, their own wirings of their brains and how they can intervene on a little conflict with their friends, or when they're scared because, I don't know, the thunder is intimidating, that they have a place inside of them that they can call home, that they can go back to, we would have different kind of leaders and a different kind of society.
You are speaking my language, my friend. Yes, and there is no there is no greater time ever than right now for this conversation to be happening. I'm really proud of you because that authentic emotional leadership is what you just said. You embody that. And there's no way that you could truly teach it or publish in this way, this type of book, if it wasn't a full embodiment. Your faith, your spirit, your connection to a higher power of your own understanding comes through so clearly on every page. And so share with us what that has meant to you as a mother, as a human, but also as a leader.
I like that question because I never see, so whether I was, perceived as the non-official First Lady of Canada or the Prime Minister's wife, or I remember journalists when we began 12 years ago asking me, so how does it feel to be the Prime Minister's wife? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, first of all, I'm nobody's wife. Second of all, I don't see my partner as the Prime Minister. I see him as the soul that I looked into his eyes when I met him. And no matter what job he has, if he's a teacher or Prime Minister, it doesn't change my perception of who he is. So I also lived that from the inside. I never perceived that I was playing a role. I was Sophie G in the house for the for the people who know me.
Sophie G in the house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or Crazy Auntie Sophie is really how people call me because, my kids' friends and all that. We do mischievous things in our homes when they're there, and I push their physical and their psychological limits, and we have fun. But all this to say that when we start believing in our titles, when we start actually believing in celebrity or fame or whatever public personality you think you are, BS. Yeah. You're disconnected and you're off your path of living with congruence and integrity. And when we live in a society that rewards self-betrayal, whether it's physically or mentally, we can't become our authentic selves. And what does that mean? Inherently, viscerally, we come onto this earth, every single person in this room, every single person on this planet, to fulfill our two basic, inherent needs. Attachment, a healthy attachment, so how the person who took care of you, and I talk about this in the book, you can take the quiz, it's fun. How the person, so think about the caregiver that took care of you, whether it's a mom, a dad, a grandma, an auntie, whatever. The way they looked at you, the way they touched you, the way they played with you, the way it was safe or not, the way it was constant or not. It sets a symphony, a dance, a music in your brain, and your brain remembers that and wires and brings it into every single relationship you'll have as an adult. It is fascinating. So it's kind of like we had the 200,000-year-old brain, and that's the hard disk, and then the programming sets in depending on, how you were taken care of and your life experiences. So that was the first one, attachment, just for the survival of being attached and being cared for. And every child needs it. So from 0 to 3, your right brain is really receiving all the information, which is more the emotional center. And then when you continue in that period, later on in life, your authenticity. What does it mean to be authentic? It means being able to express your true self, your creative self, and we're all creative, unique beings, without having to change your behavior to feel loved or understood. But we all do it, right? We do it as children with our parents. We do it in our friendships. We do it in our romantic relationships because us human beings need profound human connection. So in a world I have chills talking about this because I was watching the news this morning and the protests on university campuses and somebody running to be the right-hand woman of I'm not going to say it, but at the top office, and who was angry and decided to take the life of her dog away. Yeah, let's not. We won't even get deeper into it.
We don't need to give too much breath to this. Yes, but seriously, yes, keep going.
It's just that.
I don't mean we don't need to. We don't need to. We all know what we're talking about. Yes.
For me, I was watching this, and I've been watching a lot of social movements just as a curious student of life, thinking there's a mental crisis at every point. And it's because we are not taught how to develop emotional leadership. When you look at the data, and what is emotional leadership? I just said.
How would you define emotional leadership?
Well, it's when you take that breath when you feel out of breath, right? It's when you consciously choose to discern and witness yourself in your own behavior. Yep. So it's called wisdom in a way, right? Yep. But you need to be in a relaxed nervous system in order to do that.
To even have that awareness.
Exactly.
And you have to almost have that awareness before you can even relax your nervous system.
Exactly. But here's the thing. There's an old Cheyenne proverb that says, in the end, we will conserve what we love what we understand, and understand what we have been taught. If we're not taught about what it means to lead ourselves so we can lead and inspire others in the best way possible, then how are we supposed to save ourselves? And now we need to save ourselves, and we need to come together, closer together, from a neurobiological perspective. What's happening right now, right? We're looking at each other. If I came on stage and I was like, okay, let's start, you'd be like, what's happening? So what's happening? How many women in the room? Raise your hands. Woo, woo, woo! Okay, so a majority. So what is the role of the emotional system? And I'm quoting Gabor Mate, who participated in the book. The role of the emotional system is to push away what is not nourishing, right, emotionally. You don't want to have the hatred or the anger or the intimidation near you, and to keep what's more nourishing. Doesn't mean that we can't sit with pain, but mostly that's the role. And what's the role of the immune system? It's the same thing. Is to push away what doesn't serve the body and to keep the healthy bacteria or whatever it is. So now they're looking at the emotional health and our immunity, especially in women who put their needs in front of every other's. Do we have a choice in our homes? When you look at the state of the world, aren't we still all holding the nucleus of the family together and the emotional load of every single member of our family and trying to perform at work? But don't go for too long. Come back to the kids. You got to take care of them. And there's so many paradoxical messages that we live with every day that doesn't allow us to be authentic. But there's only going to be one Gabby in this lifetime, forever. So if you can't express your own authenticity, then you're not living in integrity. So when you look at the unbalanced ways of the world where people feel fearful, threatened, it's because there's no emotional security inside.
So
now what?
So no, that actually is kind of my question, right? Because we have these personal breakthroughs in our life, and we write about them. But I see you as such a spiritual activist. And what do you think is the first place to start for someone who's feeling that hopelessness, or I don't know how to get into my authentic self, or my traumas seem too much for me. I don't even know where to begin.
So in the present moment, this is Thich Nhat Hanh. I remember listening to him. He says that in the present moment, there are 1 million or more opportunities that you can choose to bring your attention to. And it's still the present moment. You decide where you bring your attention to. The problem is, if you're in the book, in an accessible manner, I explain your autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic branch and the parasympathetic branch. One is the fight, flight, freeze. The other is the rest and digest. So because in one day, whatever life you're leading right now, because in one day we titrate, we dance between both, and that's how we were supposed to work as human beings. And there's good stresses that should just lead us towards action. But the problem is today that with the incessant rhythm of life, chaotic rhythm, stress, anxiety, overwork, over-depleted, not sleeping well, sleeping disturbances and insomnia are an epidemic in themselves. We get stuck chronically in the sympathetic nervous system. So when we're in alert mode, it's very difficult to feel empathy, feel compassion for ourselves and for others. It's difficult to gain perspective on your life. So we are in a situation where human beings need deep reassurance, like a good parent. Really, it really is that. But what's happening in the world right now is that some leaders who want to be there for the wrong reasons, who are not emotionally secure as leaders, as human beings, they are triggering to the fear or the ignorance, and it's not in a condescending way, it's real. When you just don't know what's happening to you and somebody's trying to intimidate you in ways that you don't even notice, I think there needs to be reassurance first. So, and that comes through education. And because we can't change the educational system in the US and in Canada right now, and it will take years, but it's a major impediment, an obstacle to people feeling secure. In the book, I discuss with Rosemarie Charest, who's been a psychologist for like 40 years, and she's a wise woman, and she said this. She said, the most unhappy human beings she's ever met are the ones who cannot trust in others. Right? So look at the state of the planet, once again. So I was talking as well, and I'm going to get more answers for all of you, with a doctor who's in the Gaza Strip and seeing atrocities, okay? And she said, I talked to her about collective therapy, because it's a luxury for people to walk into an office and have the insurances or the $150 an hour to speak to somebody. It's just not accessible. So for us who do have the means and are doing it, we need to share the work and the wisdom and the growth so to many as people as possible. And it's kind of what I'm trying to do with this, because it comes from a place of, yes, there's pain, yes, there's obstacle, but there's privilege. And I want to deconstruct that privilege in order to feel closer, because I've met kings and queens and popes and rock stars, and I'm sorry, but we're all the same. It's a complete illusion. And we raise these people onto like adoration pedestals. And strangers now on social media, with our teenagers looking at them as if they were semi-gods. So our notion of who we are and feeling secure in ourselves is it's difficult to access. And it starts in our households. So I'm going to bring it back to that. If we as parents who are, or not even biological parents, it doesn't matter. But if you're mentoring, if you're present, if you are guiding, if you are listening to young people, we have a responsibility to become the emotional leaders of ourselves so they can feed off that energy. I have a 10, 15, and 16-year-old. Whatever I say, blah, 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 eye rolling, yeah? Sometimes they're like, But they feed off my energy, how I treat myself, how I look at myself in the mirror, the faces that I make or not make, how I look at other people, how I'm playful, how in the most difficult moments, I don't try to get away from my pain, but I'm like, oh, it hurts so much, but this is going to make me stronger. And there are wiser creatures than we think. And the younger we start, the better. So I'm not only hopeful, but they are tools, and I talk about this in the book as well, micro habits that can actually make us feel more secure. You teach them too, which changed my life. And I want to carry the message to the broadest audience possible so they can take those tools and not like me for the cover or whatever, but that they can change their lives, their selves. Because in the end, we all are going to benefit from it.
What's a micro habit that you swear by, that you turn to always?
Silence. And I used to be called Tornado, and I used to do so many things at the same time, and I'm quick. Like, I've always been that way. And I've learned, my father would say, Sophie, I can't swear in Quebec or you won't get it, but he would say, Sophie, slow that, because when you're running, you're just going backwards. And I was like, what is he talking about? And today at 49, I'm like, yes. We don't think we're worthy of rest, but rest is the only way that we make sense, our bodies and minds make sense out of life. So resting would be another answer to that previous question.
When I got on the phone with you, we were supposed to do a Zoom. And I was kind of at this 2 o'clock point in my day where I usually lie down and do what I call a light bath, which I'll share with all of you. But we had our scheduled time. And I was like, oh, yeah, I really can't wait to meet her, but I'm totally messed. I'm like in my gym clothes and whatever. And she texts me and she says, would you like to just do a phone call instead of a Zoom? And I was like, yes. So we get on the phone, and I was like, I'm really glad that we're doing a phone call, so I just wanted to lay back on my sofa and relax a little. And Sophie's like, yeah, I just wanted to lie in my bed. And so when you have those moments where you can phone call instead of Zoom, or these are micro habits of self-care. And we were both laughing about how unapologetic we are now. I was like a juggernaut, and I lived that way for so many years. And that undoing, that unburdening of the parts of ourselves that had trauma, the parts of ourselves that felt inadequate or unlovable or had attachment breach. When we heal those parts of ourselves, that's when we can recognize that it's safe to slow down, that it's safe to rest, because our nervous system has got the message. And so I think these are beautiful ones. I like a heart hold. I like just placing my hand on my heart, my hand on my belly.
I love that. And there's so many. Actually, we could try one.
Okay,
You want to try one?
Yes, please.
Okay. So we're going to do a vagus nerve exercise. So the vagus nerve, just so you know, who knows what the vagus nerve is? Okay? This is cool because when I started writing the book, I wasn't sure what the vagus nerve was like 2 years ago. So it's the longest cranial nerve in your body, and it's called vagus. Vagus means wandering. And it starts at the top of the brain, like the brain stem, goes into the throat region, into the chest region, into the thoracic cage, and down near the reproductive organs. It has two main functions. The first one is to communicate from brain to organ. Hello, heart, are you okay? Gut, are you okay? Yes, response, good, we're safe. And to allow for more rest and digest, more parasympathetic activity in your body, so therefore in your mind. Super interestingly enough, more signals come from the gut to the brain than the brain to the gut. So, yeah. And now they're looking that there's a network in the heart, around the heart. I have to look deeper into that, but there's a network of nerves that have a predictability for negative events in the heart. So when somebody says, oh, I didn't trust my gut, I didn't trust my heart, right? It's actually real. And this is why even modern medicine today looks at the link between the brain in here, the brain in here, and the brain in here. And we cannot dissociate anymore. So when we do vagus nerve exercises, there is a ventral part to the vagus nerve, which is diaphragm up, and dorsal, diaphragm down. So, and they work together a little bit like the two nervous systems. But if you're stuck too much in dorsal, it can be quite, it creates anxiety. So we want to tone the vagus nerve. That's the expression that they use, but it comes from Stephen Porges, a great scientific polyvagal theory. So what we do, it's simple exercises. You can do them on your bed. You can do them on a chair. So right now I'm going to teach you one that's on a chair. So make sure that your feet are rooted to the ground. And start looking right and left and just like maybe roll your head. Like try to get the kinks out of whatever stress you've been carrying for the day. And we're going to let them go together. And roll the head and roll the shoulders a little bit. And now look again right and left and see how far you can go for fun. Just see how far. Just don't overstretch it. Don't overdo it. Ultra performers, please. Not me. Okay, then come back to middle. Now, I'm going to mirror you, okay? Take your right hand and put it to the right, yes, to the left side of your head and pull towards your shoulder. And just feel a little stretch in the left side of the neck. Now I want you to tuck the chin just a little bit and really relax your forehead, your throat, relax your mouth, and do absolutely nothing for the next 30 minutes. If thoughts come up, I know, right? We're all giggling. How do we do that? If thoughts come up, just see them as passing clouds. It's okay. Whatever comes up is fine. And I just want you to sense in your body. You're going to open your eyes, whether they're open or closed, and you're going to look to the opposite side of where your head is going. So both eyes, no need to overstretch, are looking to the opposite side of where you're bending your head to. And relax mouth and throat and forehead. Don't cling to anything. And for the next now 15 seconds, you're just going to observe what's happening in your body, whether it's a sigh, digestive noises, or salivation in the mouth, swallowing. Just let it come up, whatever happens. And relax your gaze. Be tender with yourself. And where's your breath? Keep it deep. Relax, yeah. Inhale through nose and exhale through the mouth if you want. We're almost there. Just share this time. We never do this all together, so it's great. And slowly come back up. And move your head right and left. Do whatever you need. And we're going to do it to the other side. So take your left arm over to the right side and bring it to the shoulder, to the elbow, to the shoulder. And bring the chin a little bit in towards the chest. There's somehow a side is, a little bit tighter than the other, that's fine. And now with both eyes, look to the opposite corner of where your head is going to. Still with a relaxed gaze. And no time for thinking, just sense the energy that we're creating together just now, right now. And notice what comes up. Observe. No, not even a need to name it. And another like 12 seconds, so enjoy. Relax your jaw. Relax your thoughts. You're worthy of rest. And one deep inhale through the nose and out the mouth. And slowly come back up and roll. And now look right and left and see if you can go a little bit further. See the difference, just feel. So this is just one exercise. Another very easy one you can do at home is just inhaling through the nose and putting your lips together, making a B sound like and keep it low. One last time. When you're really stressed or things are going too fast and you feel overwhelmed, sometimes you can even place your cupped hands over your ears and feel the vibration when you're inhaling and doing the sound. And the reason why we're doing this, yeah, you can try it. Try it. You'll see the difference. Feel the vibrations in your body. Just sense, don't think. Again, one last time. Big inhale. Beautiful. And now just close your eyes and see what shifted maybe. Maybe it's just 1%, but that's enough. So these are exercises that you can use anytime, anywhere, if you don't mind what people think of you. I had to throw that out the window a little while ago. Should we talk about that? So there's many other vagus nerve exercises, super easy to do. If you do it on your pillow, it's the same concept. You can put both of your hands in the back of your neck, interlacing your hands, and the pinkies arrive at the bottom of the skull right here. And then you just, you look up and you look to the right without moving your head. And then you come to the middle, and then you look left. So it's the same exercise, but you don't have to go side to side. So try it before going to bed. It's really good when you want to like empty the mind, because we all go to bed with way too many thoughts, right? So that was the vagus nerve exercises, and there's many more that you could try. Savoring, reminding when you're going through a tough period. Choose one moment that automatically, when you sense the happiness of the moment, whatever moment that is, throughout your life. And dig into it with your sensory system and go deeper and deeper into what felt so good. Just go deeper in there, because you're worthy of that too. But when we get somehow emotional crumbs here and there in our relationships, because we're busy, because people are clinging on, we all are so scared to be abandoned, rejected in different ways. It's not always, super acute. But when you look at people who grow old in solitude, it's not funny. And when you look at the documentary on the blue zones, I don't know if anybody has seen it, the common denominator to every single zone is human connection.
Yeah. And community.
That's it.
That's this idea of creating community in our own individual lives, but also a broader community. First of all, I just feel so mellow. Thank you.
We should have done this at the end before I let you go. So when I teach yoga classes or yoga nidra at the end, I've seen little children. I've seen teenagers who are like rambunctious, even boys completely gone, like adults, of course. But it's kind of like, it's a little bit of reparenting ourselves, not to pinpoint that whatever we're at in our lives is the fault of our parents, but to be able to develop the self-love and patience and tenderness of a good parent towards our own self is actually really key in regulating our nervous system.
I'm so grateful that you are out here teaching these methods, because it is those subtle adjustments. It's the subtle shifts inward that when we add those up, that's when we begin to feel that change and want more of it and want more of it and want more of it.
You become, I don't want to say addicted because it's not the right word, but I now do it every single day. Even if it's just for 45 seconds, because there one day where I just, like, it's a media day, right? And we're up early until late. But yeah, it changes your mind and your brain. Your mind has the capacity to change your brain. It's pretty cool.
And it's the awareness as well. So having that awareness of what's happening on the inside can start to create that desire even to turn inward.
Yeah.
So before we take the questions, because we're going to get some questions from the audience coming through, you slightly leaned into sort of like, well, we break some rules, and you're like, you're sort of alluding to the rule breaker in you now,
Absolutely.
right? I'd love to hear from her, from that part of you that's blossomed.
So I was raised by an intrepid father who pushed my physical boundaries, like jumping off airplanes at 14,000 feet, teaching me to like do barefoot skiing, like on my feet, water skiing, because he was a water ski champion, and so was the whole Grégoire side of the family. Crazy speed, driving boats, skidoos, hanging out with the boys. Like, I wanted to be part of that. I thought I was really cool. But I also wanted to be the girl that they loved, right? I had to be perfect, of course. And internalizing all of my parents' tensions between themselves and being the only child, but this can happen in a family with many siblings. I don't want to generalize, but it is typical sometimes of lonely children. Of only children? That was a Freudian slip. When you say one thing and you mean your mother? So, right? So, yeah, so I think that this loneliness that we all feel at some point in our lives, it's common to every human being, is a key to realizing that when we stop playing, we're not doing well. So an animal who stops playing is sick, usually. Same thing for humans. Very serious humans, and don't get me wrong, I love an intellect, but very serious humans, be careful. Playfulness, in the book, Dr. Gordon Neufeld, and I'll get to your question, Dr. Gordon Neufeld explains that he got called up in the war in Ukraine as a specialist in Canada because they didn't know what to do with the kids in the classrooms. And teachers were like, what do we do? Their nervous systems are completely out of whack. They don't know how to cope. And he said, you take the curriculum, you throw it out the window, you let the children play without structure. Because when you play, like, I don't know, mama and baby cub, when you tickle each other, when you play hide and seek, unstructured play, when you dance in the middle of the kitchen, when you are, a good mischief, your brain thinks you're safe automatically. So when the bombs are falling, they still think they're safe when they're playing. This is fascinating. So, good mischief, I'm a really, really mischievous pranker. And in the book, there's a whole chapter on humor and creativity, and I let you in a little bit on the stuff that I've pulled with my mother-in-law and other people. And be careful. Playfulness was a part of my family. My father was a clown. He was hilarious. But there were addictions on both sides of my family. Very playful creatures, but also very addicted. Unexamined trauma and pain. And it's still there on one side of my family. And it still hurts me. And I'm still trying to put the cape to save, right? Which is, no, can't do that. It's not my role. And if you really think that you're here to save people, like read a book on narcissism. We're not here to save people. We're here to listen and to be compassionate and empathetic. Yes, we can try to do our best to put people in a better situation than they're in. That is our responsibility. But playfulness and good mischief tells your nervous system it's going to be okay. So it was taught to me, because when my father was young, he would go around to his aunties with a box of chocolates saying, which one do you want? And they would open the box and there would be like garter snakes everywhere, right? But just in the little things of life, like think this week, what kind of funny little wink mischief can you get into? It doesn't have to be complicated, but it's unbelievable, the connector. It's unbelievable. And I talk with a stand-up comic in the book, Mark Critch, who's hilarious. He's a Canadian comic. And he says that there's such a release in human beings from all walks of life. And with the division and polarization in politics, when you get, I don't know, Republicans and Democrats or whatever in a room, there's tension. There is. And politics is not played the same way that it used to be played. And this is just one example. It could be in a classroom. It could be in a company, right? Or marginalized communities that can't integrate or anything. But the face-to-face and the humor and the music and the tone that it sets in us is a gift. We're meant to be playful. But when we're reaching indecent hours, overworking, trying to make ends meet, and always chronically being in our nervous system, there's no more time for play. And when there's no time for play, there's no time for rest, because they go together. So in that big wheel that you teach as well, of sleep, nutrition, human connection, movement, exercise, any kind of mindful art, whatever. Could be tending to your garden. But slowing down is key.
You're making me think about something. I noticed this shift that my husband had with my son, where if my son started to like frustrate him or something, he did this sort of just by accident, or he just knew it was good. I'd see him want to go to that, like get off, and then he'd shift and start saying, who's the tickle monster, or start getting really playful with him. And he would get him to like do whatever it was he wanted to get off of me, but it would be in this very playful way. And it happens sort of instinctively for him. And I can see just how we can create so much ease and get so much more of what we want. And in that playful state, we can.
Do you remember the scene from La Vita è Bella, where the father, in a time of war, and it's just awful, kind of like imitates, thank you, Taj, imitates like a soldier walking because his son is hiding from the bad guys, and he makes him laugh in the most atrocious of conditions. It's real. And it makes me think of Viktor Frankl and, his, not essay, but his whole life story and what he went through, saying that if you don't have an awe into a greater force or a sense of something bigger than you, and a faith in life and in human goodness in the worst of all cases. And we're privileged here. We don't really know what we're talking about, but we're inspired by people who talk about it. Or maybe some of you or your families might have gone through something similar. The people who would last, who wouldn't be diving into darkness very quickly, were the ones who had a spiritual life. And doesn't have to be religious. But that's what you're talking about.
And I think faith is such a through line throughout the book and throughout your own life, I would see. There was a question actually that came in, where do you see yourself in 20 years as you develop your faith even more? But where do you see yourself in 20 years?
Why do I have a tough time answering that?
Maybe because you don't care and you're just happy to be here.
Actually, maybe. No, truthfully, that's part of it. I mean, I dream of having horses, okay? It's true. I don't have the financial independence now to have horses, but I hope so. I want to be somewhere in nature. I want to be close. I want to have silence in my life and children running around as well, a mix of everything. But mostly I want to be of service. Mm-hmm. That really keeps me nourished. One thing I've learned, because of the uncertainty that I have been navigating in the past years, and choosing my authenticity over my attachment, no matter the pain that comes with it. And I have a lot of friends in the audience who have been going through extremely difficult moments, and I'm sure that this past year hasn't been easy on anybody. Everybody has their struggles. Everybody. I realized that I've been training my brain from my yoga mat to my connection with nature to trusting human beings and to leaning into people, feeling secure. I can deal with uncertainty better. And have you seen the documentary, Philip Stutz with Jonah Hill? Mm-hmm. Oh my God, it's so fascinating, right? So good, so lovely. Good. Yeah, so and good. In it, Stutz, who's a famous, is he psychotherapist or a psychiatrist? he says that 3 main elements of what makes up a human life from a psychological perspective. The first one is life force. So in Qigong, they call it Qigong. In yoga, they call it prana. So there's so many different names for it. You have to trust in your life force. And when you trust in the flow of life, you know you don't need any other force because you're in tune and you're listening. And many mental illnesses is a breakage of rhythm with your environment. Depressed people, when you look at their brainwaves, very slow, very behind, feeling that they can't follow anything. So the depressive state becomes deeper and deeper because you never feel up to. So staying in bed is not, it's the only option. Right. Your brain is not, right? So so that's the first one, life force. Then there is hard work. So it's a luxury now for everybody to find work, which is a real problem because it takes away a sense of purpose and how to give back with your life force, whatever it is that you do. And finally, it's the capacity to accept the inevitability of change. Man, it hurts. In our relationships, in our professional endeavors, when our kids are small and we don't want them to grow up, we're attached. And it's important because attachment is everything. But at the same time, our responsibility is to detach. I hate that. But it is. And when we do that, not only do we set ourselves free, but we set other people free. So I have trained my brain to accept the certainty of change. And I'm okay. I'm more okay with that at 49 than I was a couple of years ago, or of course in my 20s.
You've done a lot of work on yourself to get to the place where you could be that okay with that, right? The more that you uncover who you authentically are, the less control you need in many ways.
And I'm like type A.
Yeah, it's softened though, I see.
Very much.
Yeah. But it's also nice to recognize that those parts of us that were once extreme, like the type A part maybe, can still coexist in this new way and have a more valuable role in your life because you don't want that type A part of you to go away. We just want to sort of soften the edges, right? It's not like you lose your edge, you soften your edges.
I love that, to soften our edges. Yeah, you don't lose them. And our predispositions, they come back. They're like, peeking up. Yep. It's fine, right? Yep. But when you catch it, you're like, oh. I always imagine a fish hook, like never perfect enough, tick, in the back of the neck. And I talked about it in therapy for a while. And I was like in my 20s. And then at one point I decided, it hurts too much. Why am I doing this? So I imagined the hook as a feathery pink one, like more like playful. And every time I would be like, no, not good enough. I'd be like, wait a second. Can you be a little bit more playful here? You're not that bad. Come on, right? And it works. The tenderness that we show. Are we our own, not perfect lover, but are we our own inner lover? I think it's Sharon Salzberg, when I was doing a meditation lesson, who said, meditating is simply meeting your inner lover. Patience, presence, tenderness, safe touch. That's all there is. You don't need to perform anything. You're safe. You're good. Imagine if every human being felt that.
Well, that's also so much of what you're talking about is teaching our children to sense into those sensations, to know what safety is inside. And I think the answer that you gave earlier was extraordinary because it's okay, yes, we can start to develop these unburdenings in ourselves, but to also just begin with the children. Begin with creating safety in the next generation.
Young.
Yeah, inner safety.
Yes.
Inner safety.
My next book is on emotional safety and nature.
Girlfriend.
Yeah.
So good. All right, so let's see what's next here. Mother's Day is coming up, and this is Eliza asking, what's an important lesson that you learned from your mom?
This is going to get me emotional. So my mom was a psychiatric nurse. She stopped working when she had me. And she was not in a safe relationship. And she has low self-esteem. So I always tried to be like, let's do this, Mom, and lift her up. And she showed me lots of love, lots of tenderness. So I would say her tenderness. She is a romantic. She loves life. And she wasn't financially independent. So there was a lot of codependency, like in many people of that generation, many women of that generation. So part of me had a hard time looking up to her. What benchmark or actions can I inspire myself from when I have to save her as a child? Today I see that her tenderness towards me made me tender. And she was my person. I mean, there was nobody else. My dad was off at work, and when I was a young woman, he became more emotionally distant. I knew he loved me, but I felt the rejection and abandonment there. So I would say her innate tenderness, and that's something, and my dad's too. I did feel that from both parents. So I would say that, the maternal tenderness.
Well, you definitely have it. You have it even in this room with this. Don't you feel the maternal tenderness so much? It's so nice. It's like
my kids are like, stop kissing me.
Oh no! So they'll lots of saved money, no therapy. Okay, here we go.
Oh no! It's already happening.
Proactive therapy. Okay, here's a nice one. This is Ashley, who's 29 years old. How do you keep your emotional and human authenticity whilst taking on exciting but scary and intimidating opportunities? I often feel like I'm in character to deal with anxiety. I'm not really sure the last part, but she's saying, really, how do I maintain that authenticity while taking on exciting and scary and intimidating opportunities?
Authenticity is bravery. Every single time. It's the pure definition of courage. I can only speak from my experience, but I have been given really unique obstacles where I really wish I didn't have to share with the world the state of my relationship. I was reading Esther Perel for a long time and trying to flip the book upside down going, man, I love this. Does it go this way or that way? And she kind of pushed my inner boundaries to see relationships in another way. And I was with her last night, and I listened to her say, so she's been with Jack Saul for a very long time. I think it's a 40-year marriage. And when she said that on stage at one of her shows, people started clapping like crazy. And she said, stop. I'm like, what? She said, stop. Longevity is not the sign of a successful relationship. We were taught that. Right? Sigh of relief, right? It doesn't mean we can't persevere. It doesn't mean we can't grow into effort and grow old together. It's beautiful, and I believe in it. I want that. But longevity is not the sign of a successful relationship. So what you have to look at is the equality within a couple, how we treat each other, the time we spend together, the presence. Are we really there when we're together? So I want to answer to her. Is she in the room?
Our 29-year-old friend.
Hi, love. I love your question, by the way. But I would say this. I would say that authenticity just means being courageous. So every time you're presented with an obstacle, instead of feeling whether you, I don't know, oh my God, I can't age, 29, I'm starting to have lines. I'm just using a futile example, okay? When you say, no, I'm not going to buy into that message because it's very patriarchal, and it's global companies controlling how I perceive myself, and now we tell 6-year-old girls how to hate themselves. It's unacceptable. It really makes me angry. And so at every time you feel there's a resistance in your life, that's the opportunity for change. No evolution without crisis. Sorry, it's painful, but it's authentic. So every next time, and think of us like tonight together. Next time there's an obstacle on your path, you're like, okay, opportunity to be authentic. And there's a little bit of, I can't swear.
Oh, yes, you can, honey. Do you know who you're sitting next to?
No, but
as long as you're comfortable with that.
Take the perception of the world, throw it out the window. Try every time. Every single time. Not because you don't care, because you care enough about yourself. And you're choosing your authenticity over your attachment to how you feel or sense that people see you or what you have to be for the world, because that's crap. And come live with us for a week or two.
So I have a question. I think this is a nice place to close our conversation. This is Elizabeth, and she's saying, I'm learning how to talk the talk. But tell me, Sophie, tell me how to walk the walk, please.
Who's this? Hi. Tell me more. What are you searching in this question?
I love these conversations because it's my conversation. I did everything on top of not being enough. Every freaking decision I made was on top of not being enough. I'm just coming through that. I'm just coming out of that. And now I want to be like you guys. I want to be you. I wrote a book. I want to have a voice. I had a horrible upbringing. I have a famous brother who put me in the corner. And I've kind of very late in life come to, woke up, here, expressing myself. And so I want to know what to do, how to do it, what's next.
You're not going to like my answer. I can only speak from my experience. But I get you. I know I can sense what you... I had to let go of blaming everybody in my life. And I did, okay? I'm being serious. It doesn't work. And it keeps you isolated mentally. I can see and I can feel that you have fire inside of you. You want to give it, right? And you want to prioritize yourself in a way, which is amazing. When we are disappointed by people, mostly it's because we've misjudged them. And when we're envious, when we don't feel that we're in our spot, they're all signs. They're all the flags that you need to see and that you're seeing that are telling you, it's your time. It's your time. Exactly. Do you speak to yourself that way? Do you tell yourself, I love you, I'm going to be there for you, I'm going to show up, it's your time? Can you speak to yourself that way?
I speak to parts of my body. Like, if I'm doing something and I need to know, stop it, ladder, stop, wait, and then I go, I'm nuts. I mean,
I'm nuts too, baby, it's all good. Right, Deb? I encourage you to let go of every parcel of blame that you put on others. It's not fun. Because it demands that you go see, why am I blaming? Why is that person taking this? Why do I feel that person took something away from me? Where was I when it was my time to affirm, but I feel that that person was an impediment to, or an obstacle for me to grow? Nobody. That's not true. It's all an illusion. We just want to feel safe. So we stay in our comfort zones to feel safe. And sometimes I'll speak from my experience, I will blame others because I don't want to get out of the comfort zone. Because I'm scared. Fear is normal. Panic is deadly. So that would be my answer to you. And it's not easy. But nothing easy brings you onto your right path. I'm not worried about you at all. I
think she's well on her way.
Yeah, you're on fire.
She's on fire, yeah. And you know what you want. That's the whole thing. Knowing you want to walk your walk, talk your... There are no accidents. And also what you see, you're guided to witness yourself and others. And so tonight, here you are in the front row, witnessing exactly what you want, to walk your walk in the presence of a woman who is living that. And she's no different than you. You're recognizing yourself in her. Okay, so you're doing it, honey.
And it's not continuous. I fall flat on my face. I still do. And then like a baby, I get back up. I'm like, oh yeah? I'm going to try again. Nothing. No one is to blame. And we're harsh because then we move to blaming ourselves. It's not necessary. Your inner lover, find her. at every moment. And the way to find that tenderness is always, always, always coming back to your breath. When I teach yoga, and this is not just my expertise, it's well known, and I'll close.
Take your time. I think everyone's happy to hang out as long as you want.
We should all have a glass of wine or something.
Tenderness here. Lots of tenderness.
Cheeses, baguette, let's go.
Okay.
Yep. What was I saying? Oh, yes. So in a yoga pose, like here, hold this 1 second. So I should take my heels off.
Woo!
It's a good thing that my toes match my outfit.
Yes.
So let's say I'm like in crescent pose, okay? So I'm in crescent pose and I'm like this. So, okay, great, it's a yoga pose, blah, 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 okay? Who cares? So if I'm like this, right, and I'm not aligned, I need to bring my pelvis forward, I need to be heavy in my lower body, which is my anchor, I need to push against that foot and elevate with lightness towards the sky and reach my arms up. This counts for nothing if part 2, so that's first part 1 alignment. Part 2, breath. Where's my breath? If I'm like, it's not yoga, right? It's not presence. It's not when you're listening to your lover or your romantic partner and you're actually not listening because you want to talk over them. Same thing, okay? And then finally, if I'm in the pose and I'm going to get into it, like give me like, and I relax my gaze, and then I like. So I had the responsibility of aligning first, like in a relationship, aligning by listening, and then I'm in tune with my breath. So you're aligning with your sense of purpose in your question that you asked. Then you find your breath, just meaning you're present. If you want to just tell yourself, I'm inhaling now, I'm exhaling now. I heard your voice say that to me last week when I was doing an anxiety challenge. And then you let go and you trust life. Trust in the inherent good nature of human beings. Trust in the better angels of our nature. Trust that you have the unique potential to do anything that you want. But most importantly, ask for help. I wasn't a person who asked for help. I was the one given it my whole life. And in my 40s, it's still today, when I learned you said yes, I was like, she said what?
I was like, hell yes.
No, but it's kind of ridiculous, right? Not that I don't, like, and this was meant to happen. But don't doubt that people, when you go to a human being and you ask for help, 95% of people are going to say, absolutely. And if we stop doing that, we stop trusting in other people. When we stop trusting in other people, we become unhappy and insecure and sick because we need the connection. So and then I let you, because it's 8:41, I just want to say how much gratitude I feel that you're all here tonight, that you're here tonight. When you said you feel that you're like her, and I feel like, and it's true even for like men and women and gender diverse, when you are secure enough to find a home in other people's hearts, that is a life well lived. No matter how many days you have in front of you. I had a breast cancer scare last year, and I don't want to die, obviously, right? But for a moment I thought, man, I really loved. I really, really loved. And I took the risk of leaping and getting hurt. It was worth it.
Sophie, everyone. Sophie. Let's stand up. Let's hear her. The tenderness and the beauty and the joy. It's beautiful. Thank you. That was absolutely. Thank you all for coming out.